The real power on earth lies with humans, lies with the consumers, lies with the individuals. And because the companies like you and I will chase them. You and I will chase their taste buds. You and I will chase their design ethos.
I'll chase their taste buds and you'll chase their butts.
Welcome to the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast. I am your host, Shawn D. Nelson, and we have an incredible Shawnism to unpack this week. Like, what's one of those lessons that like rings in your ears from childhood, right? Like, share with others, be kind. We'll talk about that actually. But today, whether you got it from your parents or one of your teachers, we do as we say. If you really think about it, how often do we not do as we say, not live up to practice what we preach? How often do self-centered traits like ego or greed or selfishness push us toward what we think might be the easier way to go about things? How often do we veer off course? What damage does this cause to our relationships in business and life? And how valuable is it to get back to that place where we do as we say? Well, this week I sit down with a man who has lived this Shawnism, we do as we say, and has avoided the easy temptation to say one thing and do another. He's understood that value of modesty and how it's not our perfections that define us in life and business, but our imperfections really that define us as a leader, how we embrace those imperfections. He's teases out how compassion through the roughest moments, through those times when we have to make hard decisions in business and life, compassion makes all the difference. And he knows why your word is such valuable currency and how to determine whether it's appreciating or depreciating in value. This is a great chat with the one and only founder of KIND Bar, Daniel Lubetzky. And in this episode, you might see a side of me that you don't often see. I get a little animated, let's say. So check it out. I think you're going to love it. Today, we have a guest who is a true visionary, a pioneering businessman and philanthropist, and perhaps best known as the founder of KIND Healthy Snacks. You know, those KIND bars, they're everywhere, multi-billion-dollar brand that we'll all recognize. His remarkable journey has transformed a simple idea into a global movement built on integrity, kindness, and action. As a leader, his unwavering commitment to aligning words with deeds has refined his leadership and set a powerful example for businesses and communities everywhere. He is the perfect person to jam on today's Shawnism. We do as we say. Just like his products, this man has shown that the key ingredients to success are honesty, transparency, and nothing artificial, just like his products. Please welcome the one and only Daniel Lubetzky.
Thank you, Shawn. It's a pleasure. I don't know that one can live up to the way you introduced it, but I look forward to it.
Oh, you're the real deal, man. I'm so grateful to have you. And I'm excited. You know, our ticker on Wall Street, as I told you, is LOVE, love, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of. We get to bring just a little love to that heartless landscape, but you did the same at a massive scale with KIND, just putting that word out in the world, you know. And I love your packaging for that reason. Every time I'm walking through an airport, and I buy them, you know, all the time. So, look, before we get into that, when you heard today's topic, we do as we say, what was the first thing that came to mind without thinking too hard?
The first thing that came to mind is aspirationally, it's a great theme. And I think we all need to have a lot of modesty about understanding that every human, like sometimes people say, oh, you're the kind guy, and they want to try to put you on a pedestal. And I think it's really important to remind all of us, we're all perfectly imperfect, and everybody should strive for the values that you said. But part of living up to those values is recognizing our own inconsistencies and imperfections and mistakes and errors, because otherwise you can't really be that if you're trying to hold up this image that you're perfect and that everything you do is right, because that doesn't exist in humanity. There's not one single human being that doesn't make mistakes, that doesn't drop the ball, that doesn't err. And so if we do want to have transparency and earnestness as a value, that comes with acknowledging our imperfections.
I love that. That's a great place to start. This right away, you get to the heart of the matter. This mantra is something that has found its way into our core values at Lovesac. And it found its way there actually because in as much as so our ultimate core value at Lovesac is love matters, which can be a difficult thing to wrangle when you're a public company with demanding investors, quarter by quarter performance. You have to do things like, trim expenses, sometimes trim the workforce, things that feel antithetical to this idea of love matters sometimes. But that doesn't mean you can't do those things, hopefully with some love, with some integrity, with some respect, all those things. But it's hard. And this idea, we do as we say, came to us as a value we had to call out because we were admittedly not, by our own judgment, doing enough to live up to our own purpose at Lovesac, right? To inspire humankind to buy better, to buy less, and everything that drags along with it: sustainability, transparency, all of these things that we're trying to be at the same time, just trying to run a business and survive. And here you are building. Yeah, go.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. Like, knowing what you know, how long have you been public?
6 years now, 7 years almost.
Knowing what you know now, would you have gone public? Did you have an option, or were you kind of forced into it by the prior decisions? And if you had an option, would you do it all over again, or would you have preferred to stay private?
So I'll say it like this. If I could just have it anyway, I would own 100% of the company and control it and be able to afford to build it the way we're trying to build it. That wasn't an option for me. I was kind of forced to raise money in 100 different ways along the way. I've done everything from, weird friends and family loans, government loans, to venture capital, through private equity, to the public market. So I wouldn't say I was forced, but I will say that knowing what I know, I do prefer being public versus being private equity owned, because I'd rather have 1,000 bosses than one boss whose, wife might have an opinion about what our logo should look like or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are pros and cons to all of the models. And I've been through many of them, but of course there are also lots of different partners, lots of different outcomes. In your case, what was your experience?
Well, I was just, when you're talking about the challenge of being a love brand and taking tough decisions, I think in any organization, whether it's a business with a social purpose, or a business with a financial purpose, or a social mission with an entrepreneurial mindset, you have to be able to take tough decisions. And a lot of people confuse the concept of being kind with the concept of being nice. And they think that, you have to be nice. You can't take those tough decisions. You have to be nice. But in my opinion, you operate at a higher level when you are kind, which means you have the strength to do what you need to do. Like, the difference between being nice and being kind is, if you're nice, you're polite. But if you're kind, you're honest. Kindness requires a lot more strength. Honesty requires a lot more strength than just being polite. If you're nice, you might not give feedback because you don't want to offend that person. But if you're kind, you provide the feedback, and in so doing, you might hurt some person's feelings along the way, but you're probably going to help them if you give the feedback the right way. They're probably going to grow from it. And if you're nice, you don't cause troubles. But if you're kind, you stand up to solve those troubles. So I'm all for financial performance and taking those tough decisions. I don't think you can run an organization or an entity of any sort without running it for excellence. But what I get scared about in the public markets is what you were talking about, the quarter by quarter measurement, because it makes it harder to reach long-term decisions that may take several quarters to prove out.
Yeah.
You know, Jeff Bezos was able to do it, right? For many, 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 many years. He was like, I'm not going to be profitable. I don't care. And somehow he convinced the world and he was able to pull that off. But in most cases, you're not given as much reign to do that. I like the fact that there's some discipline in the public process that you have to hold
Yeah.
yourself accountable. I just worry about the timetable.
No, I think that's a really good overview and assessment and accurate. The thing I like about the public outcome as well is the honesty of it. You know, the transparency of it. Like, you know, you and I have both built brands where we are seeking to convey and live up to, we do, as we say, a degree of transparency and honesty, not just about our own brands, I think, but about the world, right? Like for Lovesac, one of the things I look forward to the most, and you're going to see, you know, if you're paying attention, me do this more and the brand do this more, is shining a light on the way things are and why they are. You know, I'm working on a second book right now that essentially will be kind of an excoriation on consumerism, not to make people feel bad, but to actually kind of show them that they've been conned by very clever business interests into buying way too much stuff they don't need. These trends aren't even real, but they're not also not accidental. And they're really just driven to make us consume more stuff, which obviously consumes the earth and everything with it. And all of our even our time and energy that we could be devoting to our children or whatever, is being sucked out of us. And so with public markets, I like the transparency and the honesty and the need to be profitable, the need to like generate business results. But as long as we're meeting some of those needs, which is, I like the merit of it. Like we have to produce, we have to do well.
It's a very tricky balance. Earlier this morning, I was showering and using my soap and just thinking how sad I am that we've lost the battle, because now every kid in this generation uses body wash instead of soap. What is body wash? It's soap with water. But to produce it, you need to put it in plastic bottles. And so we are millions and millions and millions of bottles every year are wastefully added to our thing because because when I was growing up, everybody used soap. Kids might not know that. Nobody used body wash. It didn't exist. Somebody at Unilever had the genius idea to turn it into body wash. And they started minting money. And the tension is Unilever holds itself out to be a very socially conscious company.
Yes.
But once it got addicted to the taste of that body wash and to make so much money, it's probably $1 billion industry more. It couldn't stop itself, and they have the Dove this and the Dove that. But at the end of the day, they want to make their money. And I'm not by the way blaming Unilever. They are acting logically to the incentives that have been set by our capitalist system. And I do believe that capitalism is a much, much better system than communism or other forms that actually centrally try to reach these decisions. They are a disaster. Allowing the marketplace to decide how to allocate resources is more effective and efficient than decentralized systems. But at the end of the day, it comes with a very, very big danger that we're over-consuming, and there's so much plastic in our trash cans and so much waste in everything we do, and it's catching up with us, right? Like microplastics in your brain and all of this stuff. And it's a very real tension that I think through all the time about how do you find the perfect society? Because when I was too young to be part of the 60s generation of peace and love. And I'm like I don't want to have too much hair in my armpit. but there's something that they figured out that worked in terms of reducing consumerism. And I don't relate to that culture, but I really respect how they solved things. And there's things that we should do, like, go to Whole Foods and bring your glass container to refill your nuts rather than have to put them in a plastic bag. There's things we could do that we just do not do in a society where the cost benefit is like, it's so minimal. It's just a little bit of by the way, I don't do it. I should, but we should just bring our stuff, fill up our stuff, bulk. And most of us don't do even the most minimal steps to try to make our small part.
Yeah, I listen, you are now scratching at a post that I am very passionate about. And I love, look, you just said it. We do as we say. You know, I personally am not as committed as I need to be in all of my actions and whatnot, but I'm trying. And I think like the Unilever example is a really good one because yes, this is a company that is, you know, puts itself forth as a sustainably minded company for sure, even a leader in the space. They've won awards, recognized that way. But then they have this conundrum of this, as you called it, an addiction to the profitability of, let's say, body wash, which by the way, drags along with it tons of weight in transport and shipping, right? That's really an externality to Unilever that the consumer both pays for and the earth pays for along the way. Now, you don't have to be, one of the things I love about how Lovesac is trying to approach sustainability, for instance, is that we come at it through this design for life philosophy that I talk a lot about, right? Making things that are built to last a lifetime, designed to evolve so they can actually be sustainable, like this chair I'm sitting on that can change covers, change its skin, grow with me, change with the seasons if I want, whatever. And all the trading programs that'll come with it and everything we're cooking up right now. But my point is, at the root of it, and this is not something I get to talk about a lot, but you kind of poked at it. I'm trying to leverage people's self-interest to get them to act in a way that is useful for both them and for the world, as opposed to trying to beat them over the head with guilt to try and be better. Because unless we can
get cartridge model where you sell the piece, but you can justify to your investors that it's okay to be long-term sustainable oriented because you can then replenish the cover and stuff like that. Is that how it works?
Yes. And it goes beyond that. Like, here's the writing on the wall. If I'm radically successful in the couch business, which we are, we have the #1 selling sectional in the United States and growing faster than everyone. It's still a small piece of a massive pie.
You call them sectionals, right?
Correct. So the industry's sectionals, our product is sectionals. But here's my point. If I'm radically successful there and I sell even more, ultimately there will be fewer couches sold on planet Earth because of the way we do business, right? People can upgrade them, keep them for decades, pass them on to their kids. This happens. It's on my Instagram stories right now. A man who's had it for 20 years and gave it to his daughter, and now she's growing it to have all new covers. Okay, great. But the implication is, okay, Shawn, what comes next? Because the biggest companies in the world get to be the biggest companies in the world by selling you over and over again the same object. And they purposely make this object, this phone in my hand, disintegrate. And they're not even hiding it anymore because it's so obvious to everybody. Yet we still do it. Even I do it. Here's the phone. Okay, so if I have enough time, what's my point? My point is, what I tell investors, to get to the question you kind of asked, is I'm now forced to innovate. Yes, at some point, and it's still a long ways off, I will have damaged the sofa market enough that there will be fewer couches sold on Earth because I messed with it. Okay, I'm now forced to innovate. They should have already, you know what I heard on the morning in my shower that pissed me off on the news update? Oh, now with the new iPhone 16e, you can use AI to make emojis with prompts. Are you kidding me? Like, that's the big innovation. More memojis. They could have solved cancer. They could have solved traffic. They could have done all kinds of things with their hundreds of billions in profits. And it's memojis, better memojis.
With your vision, do you want to go into beyond other furniture, or you really want to just stay focused with Lovesac?
If I have enough time, Daniel, I'll go after the phone. I won't have enough time. Like, there's not enough time on Earth probably to build a brand that can stretch that far in my lifetime, but I'm trying to build a brand that's really simple, that's synonymous with the best stuff. And you want to buy that stuff because it's good for you, because it's good for your life, because it's like less stress, because it's easier, because it's better. It's not, and if along the way it helps remove more couches from the landfill and saves more stuff from being made, that's cool too, and it will.
Going back to the question we were asking earlier about whether to go public or stay private, the bigger question is, do you own it or not? Like, you own what percentage of Love Up?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, a small percentage, and I wish it was, look, I wish I could do all that differently. And maybe in another lifetime or another business
You need
opportunity,
capital to grow, and
you need, I needed it. Not everyone does. Sometimes people
going back to the question, what would have been more important to you, to be public instead of private, or to retain control instead of giving up control?
I mean, I think to retain control, if I could do it like Zuck did it. But look, that's just not my story. It's not how it came down. And now, in fact, I'm at the point where, look, the smartest thing for me to do, Daniel, if I wanted to be super rich, is sell all my stock in Lovesac, start another company I can own outright with my own capital and build that up from there. But my goal is not to just be super rich. It's so difficult, as you know, to get an organization to a size that even matters. And you have to have a lot of luck and you have to have a lot of things go right.
Oh, it's even more than that. It's very hard for any entrepreneur in the world to get more than one right, which should give us all humility, because all of us in the call, starting with the first question you asked about integrity and humility and saying what needs to be said and being honest and self-reflective and all of those traits, it starts with having the awareness that a lot of our success is luck. Yes, we work probably harder than most. We saw something that others didn't. We have a lot of skills. As I don't have false humility. I know that I've done incredible things and I'm a pretty bright guy. I work super hard. I can tell you the 20 things I do well, but the amount of luck that played into it is huge. Fortune, being there at the right time, and. And if that wasn't the case, there would be more people that have started 10 multi-billion-dollar companies. There would be more people that have started several companies of any sort that are there. You can think of how many entrepreneurs can you think of that have started from scratch in different industries, totally new companies, more than one. I mean, Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, they didn't really start a new second company. They only started they grew from Amazon. They grew this. I guess Jeff has the spaceship thing, Blue Origin. So let's see if that one's a standalone success. But in general, it's really, really hard to get more than one right. Steve Jobs did it. Elon Musk did it.
Very short list.
It's a very short list. And most times people try one, they get it right, and then they try second, third, fourth, fifth, and they don't. And so I know a handful of people. My friend Martin Varsavsky, he's done like 12 of them that became very, very serious successes, including several multi-billion-dollar ones. But I can count them with my hands, people that can do that serially. It's very, very hard because there's a big element of being there at the right time. And so it goes back to the question. If I answered my own question, I wonder if I would have done the transaction that I did, because to some degree, it liberated me to be able to do a lot of the work I'm doing with builders to try to help replace all these us versus them mentalities with a problem-solving mindset. I'm supposed to wear my builder's pin, which I forgot to do at the beginning, but I'll do it now. But this is a movement that already has 350 partners across the spectrum of politics and beliefs, and 3.5 million followers, and it's designed to try to seize back the agenda away from this us versus them destruction, tearing us all apart, and trying to help build together and build each other up.
Let's catch the listeners up. So for those who don't know your story deeply, tell us about, as you just said, the transaction that led you to this place and kind of what it meant to you, and in any way you want to share. And then also expand on what you're doing at Builders for anyone that doesn't know.
Well, if I give you a very quick, I'll try, because I like to talk, as you can tell. But if I give you I try to give you a succinct story. Born in Mexico, came to the US when I was 16, went to law school. Right after law school, started a company called Peaceworks, which is a very, very formative influence for me. Off of my college thesis, where I was using business to bring neighbors together, trying to our earlier conversation to channel market forces to do something sustainable, but also good, to make a small contribution to make this a better world. Came up with Peaceworks as a force where neighbors were trading with one another, discovering each other's humanity, working together. And Peaceworks became a food company, made a ton of mistakes, 10 years of mistakes. But from Peaceworks, I had the idea for KIND as well as for the One Voice movement. So Peaceworks brought Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, Egyptians, Turks to trade with one another. Did the same thing in Sri Lanka, in Indonesia, in South Africa, in Chiapas, Mexico. A lot of micro enterprises. They didn't scale a lot. It was spread too thin in every regard, not very focused. Very passionate, working super hard, but not sufficiently strategic. But from those 10 years, I developed insights that brought me to create something called the One Voice movement, which was a movement of Israelis and Palestinians to empower moderate voices to, again, seize back the agenda in the Middle East for conflict resolution. And then to launch KIND. And I started KIND I conceived in 2003, launched in 2004. Around 2016 or 2017, I had the insight that we were getting a lot of competitors trying to copy us internationally. Everybody was trying to copy us in the US, but we had a very good lead in the United States. We felt that, well, you need to take your competitors seriously. We were winning, but we were concerned that somebody was going to hijack our concepts and our brands and appropriate our playbook in other countries. So we sought an international partner, and trying to remember, this 2016, 2017, we ran a process and decided on Mars as our international growth partner. And then eventually I sold them a controlling stake and in the company, and we went through a series of transactions where my role decreased. And they're good people, and they've really protected the product in terms of maintaining the integrity of the product. But it's very different to be an entrepreneurial-led company and all that involves. And on one side, I'm very grateful because I'm doing builders, and I have a company called Camino Partners that invests in other companies. We're focused predominantly in the longevity space and trying to help people live longer, more healthful, and more fulfilling lives. And so we're very, very focused in that sector. As people are aging up, there's going to be a ton of need for solutions that help people live more meaningful lives. But sometimes I ask myself the questions I asked you.
No, thank you. That's a really good summary. And I think it pairs well with what you were poking at before, which I would say you also describe very well. Unless you've lived it like you and I have, and unless you're willing to be honest about it, you have to recognize, you can't recognize the amount of luck and timing and good fortune that it takes. Because you could look from the outside at something like KIND or something like Lovesac, the stock Love. And you see, oh yeah, well, I can see they took this new take on a snack bar that had, natural ingredients and celebrated whatever. Be like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like why that would explode. But I guarantee you, as you would know, only you would know, because you sat in that seat, there were probably a dozen other, similar snack foods trying to do something with fair trade, trying to do something with natural ingredient, whatever. Right. But from the name to to obviously the product and the taste and everything else that came along with it, to the timing of where like the consumer was in a mindset at that time, down to even interest rates and the cost of money, all of it kind of allowing you to have the success that you had, as well as, of course, amazing execution from a very brilliant entrepreneur. But all of that had to happen, and focus, right? Because you've lived through organizations, as you described, that were very successful in many respects, but unfocused. And that's one of the things that Lovesac did well. It's like, it was just seats and sides for a long time. Buy a bunch of seats, buy a bunch of sides, build any couch. Now, of course, we're expanding and we can.
But I'll tell you one area where I will provide some nuance and some disagreement with you, because I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
But for your assumption that part of why we won was because we had a very strong social mission and KIND brand and stuff, I don't think that's why we won big. I think we won big because we didn't allow our social mission to get in the way of an exceptional product. And it's a very sensitive balance. When I was doing Pieceworks, I was so enamored with the concept of how using market forces in the business model, it's cooked up. It's so smart to bring people together. And then thereby, every time we're selling a sun-dried tomato spread, it's bringing people together. But I was so focused on the social mission that it was at the expense of the product. And, in finance, cash is king.
Yeah.
Products, the product is king. Your product or service has to stand on its own merits, and you cannot ever let that be secondary or be perceived to be secondary. And if you allow the social mission to lead too much in your communications or in anything else, it could eclipse the importance of the fact that you were the best quality product there. So KIND, in contrast to Pieceworks, where I was always just talking about the social mission, we spoke about how it's delicious and nutritious. Now, if you're saying that our social mission was to provide healthful snacking, yes, that's first and foremost. But we had a three-pillar foundation to do the kind thing for your body, for your taste buds, and for your world. For your body, it had to be delicious. For your body, it had to be nutritious. For your taste buds, delicious. And for your world, to try to make this world a little bit kinder. And in contrast to Pieceworks, I wanted body and taste buds to be 80 or 90% of our messaging focus. And the social mission lived for many years, initially behind the scenes. We did a lot of the stuff, but we didn't promote it or advertise it. And eventually, once we started talking about it, we always did so in a way that it didn't eclipse the core protagonist, which was that this product is really, really delicious and really nutritious. Because we didn't want to have happen what happened to us at Pieceworks, that people thought, oh, I should buy it as a favor to them, but then I'll only buy it once. No, you buy it as many times as you want because it's delicious and you feel that you're doing the kind thing for your body. It's nutritionally dense. That said, just to round out for the people that are socially conscious that are listening to us, there is enormous value in your mission because our team had enormous purpose and enormous passion, and it allowed us to create a culture where how we did things mattered the most. And in the culture of respect and kindness and kind values and a we rather than me orientation and everybody working together towards a greater goal, it definitely created that culture. And yes, it gave us some openings to tell our story that otherwise we would have not had. And it created extra loyalty from some of our customers and consumers. But none of that would have been possible if the product wasn't the best product in the category. So unlike what you said, where, there were a ton of other products, there was nothing else like it at that time. There was only one product with a transparent wrapper that you could see the whole nuts and the whole fruits. And that was what was innovative and breakthrough. And I don't know, Shawn, I don't know if instead of called KIND, if it was called Love or Snacks on Us or Fruits and Nuts or something. I don't know how that would have performed. But I do know that at the beginning, people bought it because they remember the transparent wrapper and the colors. They didn't even often remember the name. It took us years for people to remember the name.
I want to build on that because you and I uncovered the same magic. We're both trying to build something that matters, something that means something. In my case, championing sustainability through products that actually sustain, but never leading with that. So right now, Lovesac, just like you in a way, like everything you just said, we recycle more plastic bottles into fabric than like everyone, because we're making giant couches and we make a lot of them. And but you probably didn't know that. And you probably wouldn't even have found that out unless you really dug on our website. And it's not because we're hiding it. We just don't lead with it. Like a lot of these brands lead with their sustainability message or their social message or whatever. And just like you focus on your taste buds first, because in the end, that's what's going to get people buying. That's what's going to get you to scale so that you can even have an influence on society like you have. Lovesac discovered the same thing. And I have to really thank, back to all of the things it takes to have success. I have to thank others in the sense I had a really strong marketing team that came to me through, places like Unilever and Pepsi and other places like that it was all about the product. And like, as much as I kept trying to drag, our design for life philosophy and everything to the forefront, it's really been about washable, changeable, life-proof, kid-proof, dog-proof couch that can stand the test of time, and throw it in the washing machine, and kind of like infomercially approach to trying to sell people sofas that are better for them. In other words, it's back to self-interest. And I believe that if we're going to change the world, we have to find a way, just like judo, to leverage people's and consumers' own self-interest, like their taste buds, like their point of view on style, in my case, furniture, fashion, all that, so that they'll pick the thing that happens to be best for them and happens to be good for the world. And maybe you can get to the scale, by the way, that you got to with KIND, and that we're starting to get to with Lovesac, where you matter enough that you actually can move the narrative that you want to move, but you first have to get to scale. And I think a lot of people.
When did you start Lovesac?
What's that?
When did you start Lovesac?
1998, 26 years in.
So what was the genesis of it? And did you have that vision then, or it evolved as you grew?
No, I had no vision. I made a big beanbag. People loved it. Finally convinced me to make them one. Then not a big beanbag. It was full of chopped foam, so it's squishy and soft. Everyone loves it. Everywhere I take it, everybody wants one. Like, oh my gosh, where'd you get that? It's in the back of a truck. We're at the drive-in movies. And so anyway, I start making them, side hustle in college. It gets bigger. We open a store because none of the furniture stores would have us. And then, now we have 300 locations. We're approaching $1 billion in sales, and it's back. I think it's interesting what you said about the deal you did with Mars, which was a great deal to expand KIND, I'm sure. But you asked me, do I like being public? I told you I'd prefer to have 1,000 bosses than one boss. And so you're on the other side of that coin, right? Like, you lived sort of the one boss scenario, as it were.
Well, I was the one boss. Now they're the boss.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In the sense, yeah, you took on a new.
They now have the fate of KIND in their hands, and it's not me. I'm not.
Yeah.
I try to be there available to provide advice and help them, but it's not. I don't run the show. Or anything. I'm not involved in running anything anymore. As of a few months ago, I'm there if I provide them. I have a call, I think, tomorrow with the management team to give them a hand on stuff they need. But
could you have done well to take KIND public? On the other hand,
I don't know. Like, in retrospect, maybe, but like, we're living in a world that's getting so. People are so afraid to be canceled or intimidated or bullied. And, my father was a Holocaust survivor. He was in a concentration camp. Wow. And for me, my foremost priority is not to make another dollar. My foremost priority is to prevent what happened to him from happening again to other human beings. That's my common thread in everything I've done. That's why I started Peaceworks. Even that's why I started KIND. Like, I love business. I enjoy business so much, and I'm good at it. But what gives me the most meaning is building bridges and preventing hate and preventing, doing my part to prevent what happened to my father. And holy shit, like, what's going on in our world today, globally, in the United States, across the world, the division, the dehumanization from all sides is very, very concerning. And so Erskine Bowles, who was the chief of staff to President Clinton, who was on my board, once told me that he felt that I was not in this world to forever be running KIND, that he thought that I needed to pursue this mission. So that influenced me a lot because he was an important mentor. Sometimes I question whether I could have done both, but the truth is that if you're worried about saying what needs to be said because then somebody's going to stop buying your products, in this world, it might be harder. And I'm liberated from that worry, right? Like, I don't want to burn bridges. I want to unite people, but sometimes I call it the way it is. And maybe I'm more comfortable doing that because I'm not attached to, like, if you have a publicly traded company where your stock can be destroyed if you upset Pepito or Pepita, I don't know that you'll have the moral courage to speak up. And I speak up to criticize all sides because I think the problems that we have come from a system, from a duopoly, where both the Democrats and the Republicans have no sufficient regard for the rule of law, where they think that the ends justify the means. And I can give you 20 examples of how in both political parties there's a disregard for the rule of law, normalization of antisocial behaviors, and people are censoring themselves left and right because they're scared to be canceled by the left or, intimidated by the right. And that's not healthy. The reason why America is such an extraordinary place is because we have an entrepreneurial culture where you can say what you believe, where you can try things out, where you can fail and try again, where you can express yourself. And if all of a sudden we start being scared to express our opinions and for better ideas to rise, and we're in trouble. And so there's a lot of work to be done. Was that too much, Shawn?
No, I appreciate you calling that out. I think it's a great distinction for anyone listening who is a, socially purpose-focused entrepreneur or just person. You have two good examples, right? Where first of all, it comes back to self-awareness. Like you came to the very self-aware place as to what you wanted to do for the rest of your life or the balance of your life, whatever. And you made decisions commensurate to that. On the other hand, you have me who, like I said, I've tried to be really self-aware about, again, if I wanted to just maximize my money, I would do things a little bit differently. But now I have the chance to stay in a company where perhaps I have to keep some of my, let's say, political or religious or who knows what opinions to myself. But I get the chance to wield an organization at scale that can have international reach and into a very intimate place in someone's life. Like the sofa can be at the center of that family's life. They don't think about it that way because it's just a couch. But now I've infiltrated their home. If they keep it for a number of years, they start to realize like, wow, that was like the best thing I ever bought. Oh, I'm going to change colors. It's going to grow. They just came out with the recliner. I can add it.
Have you tried to create a community or a sense of connection or between, have you quote unquote tried to invade their space by somehow living with them, like, moving in with them? I'm just like, is there, you could put in some listening devices and then start giving him massages before they ask? No, I'm joking. But have you tried in any way to create a community that connects with them and invites them to some experiences or no?
Yes, to some degree, but there is a ton of meat left on that bone. Huge opportunity, right? So your intuition, of course, is very good. And my point in all of saying all of that is simply, it's two different paths, right? Now, like you get to speak your mind and chase down the movement that you're trying to champion. I get to do the same, but with a different medium, right? And as a public company that has its own nuances, but I have the luxury of having this vehicle called a corporation with thousands of employees and, millions of customers that I can, if I'm thoughtful and strategic, leverage in unique ways as well. And hopefully create, look, those people that buy our stuff, like I was trying to describe, hopefully come out the other end thinking very differently about all the stuff they buy. Because like here they have this couch that could grow and change with them. Like, why can't my phone? Why can't my clothing? Why can't my automobile? Why can't my microwave? And my point is, given enough time on earth, I will attack many of those things. If the brand could stretch that far, who knows? But in the meantime, for the next decade, I have plenty of cool ideas and I can bring people along, and without them even knowing it, just by selling them better things, I can start to get them to think differently, perhaps about all the things they buy, which leads me to like, this is something I want to poke at because it's something I'm very passionate about. I think in the end, as you've called out in different ways on this podcast, it can be difficult for leaders of corporations or even leaders of countries, but whatever, leaders of companies to really change things. You can't impose, like you said, the purpose on people. You need them first to like your snack bars so they'll buy more of them so that they can eventually hear the message and it might be able to influence them for good, right? Okay, same thing kind of for me. My point is, it comes back to the people. The real power on earth lies with humans, lies with the consumers, lies with the individuals. And because the companies like you and I will chase them. You and I will chase their taste buds. You and I will chase their design ethos.
I'll chase their taste buds and you'll chase their butts.
That's right. I'll chase their butts if I don't get canceled for it. And we will go where we need to go to win their dollars. But if we can simultaneously influence them to think a little bit differently about, in your case, kindness and human relations, in my case, sustainability, the things they buy, then we can achieve our purpose, but it's a full end around. And so I didn't start with any of this. Like, it's all come along the way, but I think, like, and now as an individual, you get the choice to go spend the rest of your life doing this. I'm going to go spend the rest of my life doing that. Because of the dynamics. And I just find that interesting. Like, how do you feel about that idea that it really requires moving the people in mass to actually move the system? Because the system, it won't work from the top down.
Yeah, no, I think about those issues all the time. And it's so much easier, even though it's very hard, it's so much easier to make kind and to make that succeed than to change and move society for the better. The challenge that we have, and the challenge that I want to leave your listeners and viewers with, is we think we're very self-reflective. We think that we're growing. But man, I've witnessed, like, I'm in a chat with a group of friends that are from the far left to the staunch right and anything in between. And I was just reflecting that we started this chat 5-8 years ago. And the positions from the guys from the left are the same. The positions from the guys from the right are the same. The guys from the center are the same. We have not evolved as much. And we think we're very nimble, flexible thinkers, but because of social media and atomized cable news and all these other forces and rigid ideologies and all these other influences are making us all very, very rigid and are contributing to toxic polarization. And if anybody, we did a study where it was about 60 Americans felt that 64% of Americans were too judgmental, but only 8% thought they were too judgmental. They thought everybody's too judgmental. They were judging that everybody's too judgmental, but they were not it. And I think we all suffer from that. And if you think that you are a nimble thinker, ask yourself, when was the last time that new data came to you that made you change your mind about a fundamentally held belief? When was the last time that you absorbed information not to affirm your beliefs, but to inform your beliefs to such a point you said, oh, I was wrong about this. I've now developed a different viewpoint about this politician or this person or this issue, and I've evolved as a result. And it's very hard for us to come up with those examples. And I think I would love for your listeners to join Builders Movement. You can join on any of the social media channels or join Daniel Lubetzky on your social media things. And we provide you ideas and exercises for how to practice more flexible thinking, which is what makes you a better entrepreneur, a better parent, a better citizen of the world, being able to solve problems rather than create trouble. So, Shawn, I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Yeah, thank you. Builders, join Builders. Fantastic. Look, you can follow Daniel Lubetzky on Twitter and Instagram, as I do. Daniel, Lubetzky, at Daniel Lubetzky on either of those platforms or any platform. Grab a copy of his New York Times bestseller, Do the Kind Thing, released in 2015. And you can head to his website, daniellubetzky.com, to learn more about Builders Movement and everything happening there. Thank you so much to the champion of charity, the man who took a mission with Mars, the king of kind himself, Daniel Lubetzky. Thank you.
Thank you, Shawn. Look forward to seeing you soon.
And remember, in business and life, it's okay to miss, but it's critical to be honest, transparent, and real about it, right? To do as we say, because your word is your currency in this world. So whatever you do as you say. It might just save a chunk off of your own 25-year journey.
Thank you.
budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was $2 million in debt, barely hanging on.